Today I want to begin with a passage from John's Gospel that I hope will illustrate how clearly God defines the bullseye for us. Just to call us all together on the same page, remember that this is the image we've been using to describe the reality of sin in our lives. Sin literally means missing the mark. It's an archery term. Now, what we discovered last week when we were in class together is that this particular metaphor has within it some inherent good news. And the good news is that God has clearly defined the bullseye. We can know what we're aiming for. So this week's lesson attempts to more clearly define that bullseye as God's will. So I want to read for you John's Gospel, chapter 10, verses 6 through 18. And I want to encourage you to go back and read this for yourself before our class this evening. Pay particular attention to John 10:10. Now we are entering this passage after Jesus has just described how the sheep know the shepherd's voice, and that's what allows them to follow. So hear these words from John's Gospel. Even though Jesus used this metaphor with them, they didn't grasp what he was trying to tell them. He therefore said to them again, The truth of the matter is, I am the sheep gate. All who came before me were thieves and marauders whom the sheep didn't heed. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be safe. You'll go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and slaughter and destroy. I came that you might have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd would die for the sheep. The hired hand who is neither shepherd nor owner of the sheep catches sight of the wolf coming and runs away, leaving the sheep to be scattered or snatched by the wolf. That's because the hired hand works only for pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, in the same way that Abba God knows me, and I know God. And for these sheep I will lay down my life. I have other sheep that don't belong to this fold. I must lead them too, and they will hear my voice. And then there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why Abba God loves me, because I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes my life from me. I lay it down freely. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it up again. This command I receive from my Abba. May God add a blessing to the reading of the gospel as we seek to hear from God. Going back to verse 10, John 10:10. It says, The thief comes only to steal and slaughter and destroy. I came that you might have life and have it to the full. Friends, that's what Jesus died to give you. Full, abundant life. Now I want to read this passage from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. Again, that's 1 Timothy 6, 17 to 19. Note that in this particular passage, we are encountering warnings about placing our hope in money. So hear these words of instruction. Warn those who are blessed with this world's goods not to look down on other people. They are not to put their hope in wealth, for it is uncertain. Instead, they are to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with all that we need for our enjoyment. Tell them they are to do good and be wealthy in good works. They are to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they'll create a treasure for the future and guarantee the only life that is real. Going back to verse 19, hear these words again. In this way, they'll create a treasure for the future and guarantee the only life that is real. Friends, the life that we are promised is so much more than most of us actually receive. It's because we're not willing or able to surrender those other bullseyes, those things that we believe will bring us fulfillment. Instead, we insist on our own way. As a pastor, I have a front row seat to this struggle in people's lives, and of course, I have this struggle in my own life. So from many years of observation, I would name for you how our aim gets misdirected. These are some of the things that become bullseyes for us in our lives, instead of allowing God to define the bullseye. Sometimes our bullseye is self-sufficiency, and it sounds like, I want to do it myself. I want to be in control. Sometimes the bullseye is our need to be right, and it sounds like, I should win. I have the most points. Sometimes our bullseye becomes this transactional reward, and we'll say, you know what, I've done the right thing. I should be rewarded. It should go my way because I made all the right choices. Sometimes our bullseye becomes making a difference. We have to see results because we want to know that we made a difference. Sometimes the bullseye becomes protection, and it sounds like I can't let harm come to what is important to me. Protection is my bullseye. It is my first aim. And sometimes, interestingly, our bullseye is positivity, and it sounds like I've got to be positive because I'm afraid of my own feelings. If you spent some time, you would discover many other things that we allow to be the bullseye in our lives instead of, as we're defining it tonight, God's will for us. These struggles that we have around the bullseyes that we allow to be our aim, these struggles are going to create a condition for us which is known as bondage, spiritual bondage. If you imagine yourself in a cage, you might notice the pain of being able to look out through the bars. You can see what freedom looks like, but you can't get there. Can you feel it? Do you know how restless that leaves you? Now, I want you to imagine yourself being able to turn around, and what you see is the door's open, but you have to be willing to leave your bullseyes, those things that have defined your aim for you. You have to be willing to leave them in the cage. You have to put them down. And when you walk outside the cage, you have to be willing to walk only towards the abundant and real life that John's gospel tells us about, that 1 Timothy tells us about. Can you see why surrender is so hard? Friends, the only way that it really works is for us to be able to clearly see how unsatisfactory those other bullseyes are, and how beautiful the abundant and real life is that we are promised through Jesus Christ. The only way that we'll be able to release, that we'll be willing to let go of our grip, is to see more clearly what God has promised us. So as you prepare for class tonight, you're going to have to get honest. Friends, I need for you to sit with some questions. Journal around these prompts if you can. Questions like, so where is my aim really directed right now? What is my bullseye? What is it that I'm spending all my time and my energy aiming for? What is it that I struggle most to release, to set down in my cage so that I can turn around and walk out that door and experience the full and abundant life that God would have for me? What is it I'm struggling most to release? What life am I choosing that gets in the way of God's choices for me? And where am I insisting on my own way? And know that I'm going to be praying for you, friends, because I know how raw that kind of honesty can leave us. But I also know that in those moments when we're willing to sit with the unsatisfactoriness of the bullseyes that many times drive us, I also know that those are the places where God's reconciliation and healing become real for us. So be honest, and I'll be praying for you. I'll see you in class.